Let's wait for some people to drop in. I'd really much appreciate it if you could let me know if you can hear me and if you, when you're here. So I see Rocky, hi there. I see Barb, hi Barb, good to have you. As it tends to go with going live, obviously some technical difficulties, or obviously that's a shame that I have to say obviously, but these things happen. Perfect. Thanks so much for letting me know, guys. So we have about 200 registrants for this challenge, and there are currently 3 people, or oh no, 5. Okay, well 5. Well, but it still leaves a lot that are not here currently. So I will give it a few seconds, and I don't know. I will just maybe play a little bit for like 3 to 5 minutes, and then I guess we'll get started with the actual workshop. So good to hear, or at least read you. So good to have you guys over here. Thanks so much for joining in. Waiting for an email with a link but didn't get it. Okay, I just kind of literally sent that out, I think 2 minutes ago at the top of the hour mark, because as I said, there were some technical difficulties, but it seems that everything worked itself out. I'm going to try out the piano for just a second, and if you guys could let me know if that is all audible as well, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Let's see. Test run, if you will. Piano working, audible as well. I honestly, sorry about this, hate the sound. I will polish that up for the next one, but that's where the technical difficulties came in. As I said, these things tend to happen when you need to go live, then things start breaking apart. Murphy's Law, I guess. Cool, guys. It's so good to have you all here. So for those of you that have not yet joined the Facebook group, replays will be posted in there, materials will be posted in there, assignments will be posted in there, as well as, let me see, what am I forgetting? Well, basically just all the material. For those of you that do not have Facebook, because yes, I understand, maybe some of you don't have Facebook, I will also send that out via email. Most of it, obviously, some things are just kind of platform specific, especially the engagement and the interactivity with the kind of community, small community that we're building here in this challenge. Having said all that, technicalities out of the way, I guess I'm still showing on piano. Let's see what happens when I show you my face. Guys, hi there and welcome. And this is just a very quick face showing, because I am going to show you some slides that I prepared. So essentially, before I dive into those, let's first just get a general idea of what we're doing over here. So I am going to explain what we're going to do in these 5 days, right? There's a couple of different things. Probably you've already seen some of them on the registration page. We're going to kind of, I'm about like teaching you frameworks, and the frameworks that I'm going to teach you are specifically meant in this challenge to teach you how to kind of ditch sheets, right? We're going to learn how to play piano by chords. Chords, you've probably seen guitarists use chords in a situation that I like to refer to as the campfire phenomenon, where somebody can strum a whole lot of chords, everybody singing along, and it's a great party. Know what I mean? Exactly. The thing is, we can do the same with piano. And piano, in terms of education, seems to kind of be stuck in a very outdated system, which is sheet music. Now, I'm going to bash sheet music. And if you're a sheet music player, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for sheet music. But in my world and in the world of players like Elton John, Billy Joel, Stevie Wonder, Alicia Keys, John Legend, Jamie Cullum, you name him, like these pro pop, jazzy, fine, soul, fine, funk, fine, right? This is all under the umbrella of pop. These players never look at sheet music when they're playing, right? So keep that in mind. We're going to learn how to do that because it's actually also a much better way to learn piano. If you are very proficient with what is called harmony theory, or in other words, the workings of chords, you will be much more proficient in reading sheet music as well. So that's a nice benefit, might you ever want to go there, because yes, there is a time and a place for sheet music. I'd say it's definitely not at the start, and it's might never be the case if you're only out to play popular styles like the ones that I just referred to. Cool? Having said all that, we have 5 days. This particular day is to get you into the mindset and to get you kind of excited, hopefully, to do this thing with me. So we're talking about how you can use the group. We're talking about how this actually works, this whole chord piano thing. I'm going to give you a global overview of the things that we're going to touch upon over these 5 days. Then I'll give you an assignment, which for today is pretty like low key. You know, everybody has to kind of get into the rhythm of what is to be a pretty intense week of 5 days of your attention, and then actually doing some work at the keys or online. Like you have to find some stuff and things like that. I will get into that later. But in those 5 days, the essential goal is to get you to play your favorite song. Now that seems like a bold promise, and before I go into explaining more about that bold promise, I'm going to pull up my slides, but essentially that's what we're doing today, right? So an overview of the 5 days and kind of, yeah, the main framework, if you will, and then we'll get into some really cool action, if you will, as well. So everything's still good? Hate sheet music. Love that. I hate it too. Well, yeah, it's cumbersome. Let's put it like that. Then I think I will go to the slides. Just a very quick little backstory that I've prepared for you over here because, yeah. Why are we even doing this, right? What is pop piano versus classical? Is that really so different? And do you really not need any sheet music? By the way, guys, very quick question. These are visible, the slides, all good? I think all good. Just taking that it's all good. Okay, so yeah, today we're going to take a look at that, which I like to refer to as piano like a guitarist. But in essence, what we're actually going to learn is how to play pop piano. Again, pop is a broad umbrella term here, right? So it doesn't need to mean Justin Bieber. It can absolutely mean Stevie Wonder, right? And Stevie Wonder has a lot of obscure tracks as well, which are very jazz influenced. These things all fall under pop, as does rock, funk, soul, and all types of music. But essentially, you're here at the right place when you like to listen to the artists that I just called out. I will do it again later. So if we want to learn to play like that, I guess we just do this, right? That's all there is to it. Just strike a funky little pose with this funky little keyboard. I especially like the tie of this dude, and then we're there. That is obviously just a very lame joke to get things rolling over here. But, you know, kind of a bold promise to get you to play your favorite song in just 5 days. Is that actually possible? Yeah, yes. Definitely, else I wouldn't have made that promise. But the results disclaimer, if you will, here is that you're probably not going to learn to sound exactly like it sounds on the record, although I would argue that you'd get much closer to how it sounds on the record than with any type of sheet music. But I hope that you realize that might you be like somebody who's just starting out, or even if you're more advanced and looking to get to that next level, it requires practice. That's just a given. That's just a thing. Like that's the way it is. That's what I meant to say, right? But at first, when I like started out on this journey where I went for chords only, I just wanted to sound a little bit more like those records that I was actually listening to, which was like Elton John, Billy Joel, and stuff like that. Now, my old way, which I will get to in a second, with fidgeting with sheets, that just didn't sound right. Even if I could find like arrangements that were made for sheets, like arrangements for pop tunes, they never sounded quite right. And by the way, they took forever to figure out, right? So I was wondering about what made those pop piano singer-songwriters sound so cool, essentially. So the discovery that we're going to talk about in this lesson, that's what we're going to talk about in this lesson, the discovery. Because I can tell you that it's not a coincidence that you never see Elton look at sheets while he's playing, right? That's just not the way that he approaches the piano. No. And when I made that discovery, which I refer to as the discovery, now I can play most things within 5 minutes. So that's not to brag. It's just to say that a lot is possible if you really put some emphasis and some effort in. Okay? So who is this for? If you are just starting out and fall under category number 1, perfect. I'd say this is the best way to learn piano. Right? Period. Even what I just mentioned, if you want to go to sheets later, then you're good with just first learning your chords and then going to sheets. If you've already been playing from sheets, then I will show you how chords actually, like what you've been doing with those single lines and dots on paper, how they actually form chords, and how by knowing chords it all makes just so much more sense. If you've already been playing a little bit by chords, then I'm here to change your mindset from doing it every now and often, or every now and what's the term, every now and then to essentially every time that you sit at the piano. So what is chord piano, and does that really allow me to play anything without ever needing sheets? And that's something that many people ask me, and I always simply counter with, have you ever seen your favorite artist look at sheets, right? Not a coincidence, as I just said, they are just approaching this in a completely different way than the sheet music approach does. So the goal for this live class, but also for the entire 5-day challenge over here, is to kind of convince you of my thoughts here, convince you that chord piano really is the way to go, and that the chord piano formula, which is what I'm going to teach you over the coming 5 days, is the only way to actually play that in a right way. So probably most of you know me. Just a real quick introduction here. I'm Koen, and why am I here to teach you this? Well, when I got out of conservatory and started teaching this stuff to people, it pretty quickly got picked up by both Roland and Yamaha, which featured me on their sites as being the way, like their method of choice, if you will, for learning piano, which was all really cool, but not really how it all started out. So I just want to tell you real quickly, this won't take more than 5 to 10 minutes, how it was that I encountered like chord piano and how it allowed me to do those things that I just told you. So this all started out when I got to a new high school. I had to quit my old high school because I failed some classes. So I went to a new high school, and as you can imagine, when you get there in year number 3 and you don't know a lot of people, you don't have a lot of friends. So that was one thing. I think my initial goal with listening to music as well as wanting to play music was to kind of I don't know, maybe I thought I could make some friends or maybe impress some girls or maybe impress some guys as well. Like maybe they would like me better. But this was kind of lingering in the back of my mind. It was a dream, but not really. Like I wanted it, but there was this previous experience that I had, which you see a little picture over here of me trying to learn piano from sheets, which was, as I write here, the not so successful approach. So I had kind of this obstacle to relearning it again, however much I really wanted it. And then there was this moment in the year, about 3 months in, when we had this school concert. And when I saw some friends, this is one friend of mine that I saw there performing on stage, being accompanied, because you only see her here, but she was accompanied by friends of hers, right? Which were slowly starting to become friends of mine as well. I mean, we're 3-4 months into the year now. I start to get to know a little bit of people, but I mean, I was just mesmerized by the fact that these guys were on stage making music, and she's like a true angel. Her voice is absolutely amazing. And this re-sparked in me something that was kind of slumbering, lingering there, a desire to play music myself. I decided then and at that moment that I wanted to become a rock star, essentially. So obviously a funny goal, but yeah, I mean, why not, right? Shoot high. So year later, I was on that stage and needed a haircut badly, by the way, but hey, I made it. But I tried piano again, went back to that old way, tried the sheets, tried to find, and I did find like this arranged version of the song that I wanted to sing at that moment in time, which I honestly, to be quite honest, don't remember which first song this was, but I remember that I just couldn't make it in time for the concert. So she was kind enough to accompany me. Half success, I would say, like I was on stage, but I didn't make it to actually accompany myself, which was my dream, right? I was listening to Elton, to Billy, to all these like singer-songwriter type musicians, and I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be at the piano and accompany myself. So kind of a fail again, more or less. Then I met this friend, or let's say it wasn't really a friend, he was a couple of years older. So I met this guy in school because he kind of had to oversee my class because he was in a higher class at some camp trip type thing. And what do you know, the exact thing happened that I just referred to earlier as well. Matthijs was a guitarist, and he, like at the campfire, took out his guitar, strummed dozens of chords, and we all sang, or dozens of chords, strummed a whole lot of chords, and we all sang along dozens of songs. So I went to this guy Matthijs and asked him, like, I don't know, man, like, what is the secret here, right? How can I know I'm not a guitarist, but how could I do what you're doing on the piano? And he was like, well, you just got to learn your chords. That's what I'm playing. And I figured, like, okay, if a C on a guitar is a C on a piano, which I knew it was, right? Then why a C chord on the guitar, not the exact same C chord on a piano? So I went online, and online was a horrible experience back then. I mean, we're talking pre-Google, pre-YouTube, it was the Wild West still. So there was not a lot to find, but there were a couple of obscure sites that told me how to grab these guitar chords, and I started figuring out scales, chords, just kind of one-on-one copying those guitar notes to the keys. And you know what? It sounded really good. So I kind of felt like I broke or found a cheat code over there, where previously I had to decipher every single note on the sheet, and it was just horrible stringing them all together. Now I had found a way to just grab one guitar grip, which is not an actual guitar grip. Like, I will get to the piano in about a minute or 5 and show you how it actually takes form, obviously. But a grip, nevertheless, and just play it on the piano, and it was so full, like just sounding so good even without any rhythm, I was far from an experienced player. So the only thing that I could really do was lay down those chords, just boom, like one chord, and then move to the next. But this already sounded amazing and much closer to what the actual big guys that I was listening to were playing, right? Although not one-on-one, but it sounded really good. And this is something, by the way, as a takeaway to interrupt my own story. The thing with this is, with this chordal approach, is that when you see a guitarist and he does that grip, you have these really advanced guys who do all kinds of crazy strums and plucks, and you know what I'm saying? You've probably seen those guys, and they do all kinds of cool stuff and riffs and licks, I don't know, stuff like that. But then they're playing like an advanced version of a tune that some beginner would also be able to play with just some more basic strums, right? Basic chords. The same goes for piano, for chord piano, that is. So in other words, you can scale a tune to your level, and this is something that is completely unique to this approach. Like, you would never be able to do that with any type of sheet, because whatever's written on the sheet has to be those exact notes, right? They are all right there, and they have to be at that moment and that time. But it completely takes away your freedom also. But okay, that's for another story. The point that I want to make here is that when you have a set of chords and know how to use them, you can play it at the level that you are currently at, which is just kind of amazing, and is kind of the reason why I am able to now promise you that you are going to play your favorite song in just 5 days, because we will scale it down to your level, right? And it will sound cool. Like, I promise you, it will sound cool, but just so you know that this is really going to work. Okay, cool. So essentially, I started figuring out tons of songs by all these cool artists that you see here: Beatles, Adele, Jamie Cullum, Billy Joel. I've mentioned most of them. Coldplay, by the way, is also a very cool band that uses a lot of piano. But note, I also figured out songs that were not originally played on a piano, because that's the cool thing. If it's a guitar song and you got the guitar chords and you can play those guitar chords on the keys, right? This is how those guys are able to do covers and renditions of songs that are not originally played on the piano. So that's really cool to kind of copy whatever is going on the piano. Like if I'm talking about your song, or for instance, that's purely piano, right? Or Piano Man, or there's dozens of, if not millions of these songs, by the way. But the thing is, you can also like translate every other song, and that is a really, really cool thing as well. Okay, so I could learn them very fast. It sounded much more like the original. I figured out that this was actually how music works, because when I joined some bands, well, this was how we communicated in music, right? So that's another thing. Like, classically trained piano players, when they join a band, they'll quickly see that everybody's talking about chords and accents and riffs and grooves and stuff like that, like all those things that are not really translatable from sheets. But when you know your chords, you can kind of join the conversation with the guitarist, the bass, and drums in a certain way as well, when we're talking about patterns, because this is what we're going to take a look at in this lesson: the what are the chords and the how are the patterns. I will get back to that in a second. Fast forward, I decided that this needed to be written down. I mean, I was teaching students one-on-one when I was a student at the conservatory, but I figured, like, if this system is still so outdated, like the educational system on piano, right? Everybody's sent to classical music and music notation first, and it's just completely backwards in my opinion. So I decided to start write a book, and really took off. I'm helping now, pinching myself every day, but the number keeps growing, over 135 students all over the world. And I played a lot of cool stages, and that is amazing, because kind of that dream of a rock star came true in a sense. But I must be honest, the best moments that I had with being able to play like this is actually just with my family. For instance, at Christmas, like just small group get-togethers with some friends, just, you know, jamming, playing some tune for my girlfriend or whatever. Like, that's the actual cool stuff. Okay, this is a student of mine. I'm not even going to read all of this. It's just that last thing in bold. Music is a language, because I'm not even sure, honestly, of if that is her. Like, this is one of my first students. If that is her who said that to me first, or that I came up with that analogy. So, but it's just so important to realize that this made it completely click for me, that music is in fact a language. And the strange thing with music is that if I like make the analogy with Chinese, right? If you want to learn Chinese, then would you rather have somebody tell you a couple of words, maybe some sentences, so that you could order a coffee or a bread, or, you know, just get around, ask people how they are doing. So learn a couple of words, learn a couple of sentences, and get around that way. Would that be what you want? Or would you want to dive into that crazy difficult, I mean, I can't read it, so for me it's difficult, but hence the analogy here, because music, like music notation, traditional sheet music, is also a strange writing, right? Or would you rather dive into that and then really, really learn first how that works? It's just crazy to me that that's the way that we learn piano. Okay, so if you've been struggling with anything, maybe you're just starting out, but if you've been struggling with sheets, it's probably why, because you didn't approach music as a language, which we are going to do right now. So this was my backstory. I am referring back to what we're going to do in this program. I will show you how to play like this live here in just these 5 short days. Cool. And as I mentioned, we're going to go through a couple of different frameworks to make it really clear for you how you can do these things, because my goal here is to really make you understand this stuff. Okay, so not just like, you can go on YouTube and follow any one of my tutorials, and then probably you will be able to like play the song. It's probably going to be not at your level, but hey, that will work. But that's what we call rote learning, and without actually understanding what's going on, like, yeah, I mean, you could totally break free of any chains, if you will, when you do understand what's going on. And that is exactly what I'm out to teach you here, so that you can take any song in the world essentially and then play it at the level that's suited for you at that moment. Cool. Mix? Yeah? So, hoping that was kind of clear, going over what we're going to learn. So we have 5 days. This day is more or less the overarching, as I said, framework. But we're going to dive into what I like to call the 3 main pillars, or the 3 secrets, to learning piano in this popular style way. The first of those is kind of the main framework. So point number 2 and 3 kind of fall into that first one, which as I just referred to, I like to call it, or I like to approach it as music being a language. So I will give you a taste of that in this very lesson as well. And essentially we're going to look at how to ethically steal some lifeblood skills from our 6-string friends, which are guitarists, and learn thereby any tune in the absolute fastest way possible. All kind of nice benefits to this fact that, you know, you're going to sound like you want to, and finally actually play some pop music on the piano. Piano chords is number 2, because those are essentially our words, right? I will show you some grips, and I will also explain how you can find any of the 4 main chords there are, because there are only 4 like main chords. Yeah, so in a normal language or another language, you would have nouns and verbs and like all these different. In music, we have 4 of those. Okay, and I'll show you how to find all of them. So essentially, you'll walk away with knowledge that you can already apply on any tune and play it in a very basic version. Patterns is where it really comes alive. That's comparable to strums, plucks, stuff like that. I like to make the analogy here with pronunciation and conjugation. Yeah, so I'll just demo it in a second. But this is what really is really going to make it flow. So, and then, so that's day number 2, 3, and 4, right? We're now in day number 1, where I'm, again, just going to give you some high-level overview of all of these things. 2, 3, and 4 were 1, 2, and 3 just now. And then in day 5, we're going to put it all together, and we are going to make sure that you play your favorite song, and not just that, but actually by heart. All right. I also would like you to drop these sheets all together, even if we're talking chord sheets. So, and I am going to go to the piano and then show you how this kind of works, right? The chords and patterns framework. So that's the main first framework that you need to know if you wanted to learn like this. Obviously, it's all up to you, but this is the first and main 2 pillars. Now they fall into that music as a language framework, which I will refer to at the very end of this class. But the most important thing here is that if you want to speak some words, or let's put it differently, if you want to make yourself known in any language, it's good to have some words in your vocabulary, or a grab bag of words. Now, the how you are going to say them, how you're going to pronounce them, how you're going to conjugate them, those are the patterns, right? So I told you about Matthijs and the campfire phenomenon, which is playing piano like a guitarist. Dozens of chords in your grab bag allows you to play millions of years. So yeah, and that is essentially what we call chord piano. I'm first going to demo, and then we'll get back to this, what's now set here as being step 1. So are there any questions up until this point? This is kind of the backstory on what we're going to do over the coming few days. Now I will show you a little bit on how it actually takes form on the keys. So maybe not that much questions yet, because there's not much actual theory going on. Let's see. So we'll switch over to that, and then go to that. Right. So the first part of this equation, as I just said, and let's get this out of the way so that I can still see. Any questions? Just shoot, guys. I'm here to answer them. Chords, right? As I mentioned, these are grips. Now, whether I'm talking about, let's see, a C chord over here, which is a major chord, an F chord over here, or a G chord over here, which are very common chords, and you could say like very common words, okay? They could be the synonyms for ordering coffee and stuff like that, like, or how are you doing? Things that occur very often. As you see, as I'm playing over here, is it visible? The top keyboard is not really doing anything. Let me fix that real quickly. That's a little bit cooler if you can also see that. Like that. I think it should work like that. We're going to be about an hour, guys. So just doing some. Look, there we are. So, right? If you take a look at this form of this chord, then you see that essentially I'm playing a note, I'm skipping a note, I'm playing a note, skipping a note, I'm playing a note. That very grip, because this is like, we're comparing this to guitarists, right? So this very grip, like a guitarist would have a grip on his neck, right? On the neck of the guitar, not on his own neck, although I don't know what crazy guitarists do, but this very grip, you can just shift it over there and you have an F chord, right? It's the exact same thing, starting on the F, skipping, playing, and then we have an F chord. Doing that same thing over there is a G chord, and essentially doing that same grip again, right? So that's one thing to note, because we're going to refer back a lot to these kinds of similarities. Now, another thing to note here is that when you do know these chords, and these are just very simple, an example of very simple major chords, I will tell you how to actually build them in a second. But if you know these chords, then they can occur in, for instance, a tune like Piano Man. Or Let It Be. So why is one song Piano Man and the other song Let It Be? That is where the patterns come into play, right? So the first chord that I played was the same thing, and all the crazy extras that I'm doing, that is what the patterns do. Now, having said that, I kind of try to get more or less close to the original version of these two songs, right? As they would have been played. Not exactly, but that's also very fun, right? It's not exactly the same, but you hear what it is, and it's also a nice version, so to speak. Keep that in mind. But even if I would play, it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday, right? And don't do all these extra things. So 9 o'clock on a Saturday. I'm just laying down the chords and singing a melody. And you see that even without any patterns, I still can make it that tune just by adding the correct melody on top. Same thing goes for Let It Be. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. Right? Very simple grips, allowing me to kind of sing over that and get to that piano part. Now, let's see. I am going to teach you a real quick trick over here, because I just cut off the slides over there when I was about to tell you about, like, this is demoing sort of, right? But how are you going to do that yourself? Well, the very first step I would highly recommend you to take is to listen to the song. And this might sound a little crazy because probably you're listening to music all the time, right? But by listening, I really mean analytically listening, because you hear much more than you think you hear. Like, it's the difference between having music come at you as being a cloud of sound, or trying to really hear where those chords change. I mean, when I'm doing it for you over here and you can see this, then it's pretty obvious when the chords change, but you'll be amazed at how good your ear actually is at defining those chord changes. Now, when you've done that, the very first actually actionable step to take would be to find the chord progression of your tune. There's a couple of different ways to do this, and essentially this is going to be the first part of your assignment, to define the song that you want to learn and then find the chord progression. Now, we are in luck here because there are these multiple ways to do this. The first and most easy one is to go online, to Google, for instance, and just type in chords and then the title of your song. Okay? Because that will probably pull up dozens of guitar sites, and that is the beauty. Now we are stealing from the Guitarist, right? So we can also use their chord progressions. So those chord progressions will probably, and I am going to get back to the keys in a second, but just so you know what we're looking for here, and then I'll show you how to actually use it. So that would be this one again, and then there. So as I said, like, listen to the song, right? You get and then learn the chords. Now, finding those chords is what I just talked about. You Google this, I just told you that. Click on those guitar results, and it will give you something that looks like this. Now, very convenient here, and this is just Piano Man as an example. This works with any song out there, right? I would highly recommend to stick to pop music. As I mentioned, this is mostly relevant for, like, if it's a singer-songwriter, you're golden. Like, aim for that. But having said that, anything that goes for popular music is good. So one thing that's convenient is that you see here the lyrics, right? And that is a very nice anchor point for any tune. Like, we know lyrics, or maybe not by heart, but we recognize them, right? Above those words of the lyrics, you see what we call chord symbols. And the chord symbols represent the actual chords that you would want to play. So try to remember this, right? Just for kicks here. I mean, in the end, we're aiming for you to be able to play this by heart, and the reason why you can do this is when you know your chords, which we are going to learn today and tomorrow, then it's very easy to remember something like C, G, F, C. That what you see written above that first line, right? It's 9 o'clock on a Saturday, C, G, F, C. Right? And then we have F, C, D, G. If you're able to remember that, great. If not, I mean, I'm going to exemplify now that indeed works, how those chords look, and how you can find them yourself for any tune, like not just for Piano Man. Okay? So, let's see. Going back to the keys, and then like that. Okay, so first chord was a C, right? 9 o'clock on a Saturday. As you see, I'm now using those very basic grips, and I'm doing that on purpose because I don't want to jump into like level 1000 immediately. We're going to build this up gradually, step by step. If it's too easy for you, bear with me. We're going to go much more advanced quite quickly. But the thing is, like, you do want to take all these in between steps. So, as you see, I'm doing that very easy, same grip all the time. Now, how did I find that grip? But were you able to remember, by the way, what the chords were? Right? Very quickly, yes, Daniel, we're going to record these, and you can watch them later as well. If you want to find a chord like this, a C, which probably most of you remembered, like the C, okay, is this chord. How can you find this chord? Well, here is the trick. There are 4 types of chords. This is called a major chord. A major chord is a chord where there is nothing written after it, right? So we have major chords, minor chords, augmented, and diminished chords, more or less. I'll get back to those later 3 or those other 3 in a second, but just so you know, major chords are the boss, okay? They are the most common chords. When there's nothing written after the chord, as you see here on my screen as well, right, over there in the top corner over there, you see a C, like just a C. That means that it's major. So if you have a sheet like that and you see a chord with nothing written after it, it's a major chord. A major chord can be found, and if you have pen and paper, this is the moment to start writing. If not, it will be posted in the Facebook group. A major chord is to be found by going to the note that you're looking for. So for a C chord, I'm looking for a C note, right? So this is absolutely essential that you know how all these notes are named. But this is just so base level, and you'll be able to find, like, just see at the top over here, it has all those names, and charts like that are all over the place. So that's too easy to spend any time on. Okay, so find the C, then you're gonna go, and now note this is very important. The keyboard is built out of half steps, meaning that this is a half step, this is another half step, another half step, a half step, a half step. Why is this also a half step? Because there is no black key in between, okay? That's just something to keep in mind. If you go to the very first note that occurs, whether that's a black in this case or a white in this case, it's always a half step. Okay? Going back to, I'm looking for a C, so I'm going to go for the C, and then I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, and then 1, 2, 3 half steps. Right? So starting on the C, I'm taking 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, 1, 2, 3 half steps. So 4 plus 3. That's your formula for finding major chords, and it works on all major chords. I mean, if I do the same on the F, coincidentally it kind of has the same grip over here, but I will show you with a different chord in a second as well. So we're looking for an F chord over here. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1, 2, 3, right? Because there's no black key in between. This formula will allow you to play all major chords out there. Okay, so for instance, let's say I want to find a more difficult chord. So I want to find a G sharp or an A flat chord. Like these black notes are called sharp or flat. Again, refer to charts which just tell you the names of the notes. It's not really worth it to spend any time on it, but you can call it in two ways, either sharp or flat. So like approach from the bottom, it's a sharp, we're going up. Approach from the top, it's a flat, we're going down. So I want to find an A flat chord, major, right? Now, the formula that I just told you, 1, 2, 3, 4, plus 1, 2, 3, would find us 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and yes, that is indeed an A flat chord, right? So that's the first one. The second one, so essentially when you grab that chord of Piano Man, which I will by the way also share later on in the group, might that be the tune that you want to learn, then you're able to find every chord where there's nothing written afterwards, right? The second type of chord is called a minor chord, and these are occurring pretty much even so often, if you will. Like major and minor are the two major, not major because it's minor, but the two large chords over here. These are the ones that we really want to ingrain. Augmented and diminished chords, as I just already referred to, occur way less often. So even if you forget how to build those, you'd probably be good for 90% of the music. Okay? So minor chords. I'm going to find an A minor chord. For a minor chord, we do the exact like vice versa thing. So for major, I did 4 half steps plus 3 half steps. Now I'm going to go 3 half steps plus 4 half steps. A minor. Starting on the A, because that's what I want to find, an A minor. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. A minor. Okay? Easy stuff. Does it work on all chords? Exactly, it works on all chords. Starting on a C sharp, for instance. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. C sharp minor. You'll soon see that, for instance, in Piano Man, there are no augmented and diminished chords. So essentially, with this information, as I said, you'd already be able to play that entire tune in a very basic version. I agree, but we're going to make it more complicated in terms of voicing tomorrow and in terms of adding some rhythm the day after that. Or, yeah, well, anyway, we'll get to that. Major chords. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Minor chords. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can find all the chords. Okay. Very quickly, again, just briefly touching upon them because they do exist, but they occur way less often. Diminished chords. Think about it like diminishing, going down in a way, is a minor chord with also a minor like second step. How can I make that more clear? Sorry for that was not really clear. Suppose I want to find the A diminished chord. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, like with a minor chord, and then 3 again. 1, 2, 3. That's a diminished chord. A dim. Okay, so that's 3 plus 3. So diminished in terms of it being the least amount of steps that you're going to take. Yeah? The other way around is 4 plus 4. So we got 4 plus 3 for major, 3 plus 4 for minor, 3 plus 3 for diminished, and 4 plus 4, so that's C, an A augmented chord, starting on the A, here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, A augmented. Okay, again, these last two occur way less often, but just so you know how to build them. With this information, you are able to play in a very basic version without adding any like frills or exciting stuff. And yes, it is exciting, and yes, you probably want to play it eventually, but just starting off here in the what part of music, as I just said, the chords is the theory, the what, which notes are we going to play. Then the patterns is adding movement to that, adding motion. That is how we play those notes. Because if I play C, F, G, like that, it's a different thing from. And I mean, this is just a really lame example because it's still so simple. But you hear that now things start moving, and you know it's a completely different thing. So the patterns is where you make a completely different thing out of the same set of chords. And apart from the melody, although we could go into a whole discussion over there, which we will probably do at a later point, but apart from the melody, that's what makes a song that specific song. Yeah. Having said that, we always have the melody. So if you know those chords, which you now know, then you're able to play your tune, your song, whether that is the Elton John song or any other song. Right? E flat, A flat, B flat, E flat. We're not here now to learn this song, but it's just to see that I can also play it like that, and it sounds not the same. I mean, that's where the patterns come into play, right? When the patterns come into play, you get to these parts. That's the only thing that I wanted to illustrate. But laying them down is already pretty cool, I think. I mean, like the harmonies are nice for that too, right? Guys, are there questions up until this point? No questions as it appears yet, which is perfectly fine. I guess things are more or less clear, and that's what I'm aiming to do, so that's great. Let's see. We can go to, we got a question. What if you can't see in the key that it's written? I mean, essentially, the key of the song, we'll get to that later. We'll get to that when we get to the chords. Or what if you can't sing? Like, that's a thing. That's obviously, like, you do want to have that melody. So I would suggest that actually you can sing. Well, like, most people can sing a lot better than they just don't dare to sing. But having said that, I would say whistle or find a singer. No, you know what the thing is? Sometimes people ask me, can I also play the melody with my right hand? And obviously you can do that. And in a later lesson, I will show you. Okay, I get your question now. So, but still, like, rounding off this story, in my opinion, playing like melodies that are supposed to be sung on a piano is actually pretty lame. Why? Because it's like, it's written for voice for a reason, right? And it's not to say that you can't have like these little phrases of melody, which can be really cool and engaging when you just keep it like that, like short bits and short phrases, then it's cool. But if you try to make like a fully melodized like arrangement on the piano, I don't know, that's not how it's supposed to be, right? Having said that, I will show you how you can in fact do some cool stuff that does have melodies, because licks in the end are kind of melodies as well, right? Okay, Gary, I don't know what the damage VI exactly mean. I am very sorry that I don't know and that's the case. Can you whistle? And else it's still, I mean, let's put it like this. If you know how this works, then as I mentioned, you're also much better off to transition into, if that's what you want in the end, playing melodies as well, because I like to argue that melodies come from harmony. So if you first learn this as kind of a basic version, then yes, you can add melodies as well. All right. Yeah. So, but stick to whistling then for the start of it, I'd say. And also, when you're practicing by yourself, just imagine the thing, right? So what I have just shown you over here is essentially how to go from this to this. And that is the first part of the equation, right? You want to go from something like this to something like this. You want to be able to, when you look at this, see this. That's where we want to go. And how we go there is first and foremost by that little trick that I just showed you, which is the 4+3, 3+4, and getting to know those basic root position triads, as we call them. Now, then you essentially do what I just did, is laying the chords down and sing or hum, and if that's not possible, then whistle, or just like play it with the voice in your head, especially when you're practicing by yourself. That works wonders as well. Yeah, but as I just referred to, it's actually, the fact is, so it's a fact that all music is built from chords. So even if you want to go more melody oriented, like what I just showed you with Elton's song, right? So Elton's Your Song, I also kind of laid down those chords for a second and then I started breaking them up again. And you see how that kind of translates into that moving, flowing part, and that's very melody oriented in a way, right? That's just breaking up chords, which is what we'll get to when we start handling the chords on what I believe to be day number 3, but it might be 4, but don't pin me down on that. You'll obviously receive the information when it's relevant, but it's just to illustrate that even this part here, which is a classical part, which is very beautiful, I think, but all these different types of, like all these single notes, right? They're essentially just derived from these grips. More advanced chords, I give that to you immediately, but this is where you want to go. You want to see all music as the chords that it actually represents, the chords that underpin it, right? And this is a kind of redundant, but I already told you that, right? Now, this I already demoed, so we're going to go through it really quickly. All music has those patterns, and that is essentially what makes it that music, right? So this is just a really quick tip of the veil of what we're going into on the patterns day, but I mean, I wanted to touch upon everything very lightly here. Clapping, like people think they have trouble with, what do I do with the right and the left hand, all, you know, doing different things, and that's all very difficult. And yes, it requires some practice. Like there's a couple of techniques that might be challenging. This is probably what is the most challenging about playing piano. That's, I give that to you, but I give you that is what I meant to say, sorry. But what I'm trying to do is make this as graspable, not a word, but I like it, as possible, which is the very first step would be to clap along to your tune. So if I would do Your Song, for instance, it's a little bit funny, this feeling inside, right? Clap. And just feeling that pulse and that groove, that will give you an enormous advantage when you essentially just don't clap, but play that with chords. Because I like to say piano is like drumming on the keys. And if you want to go for licks and fills and stuff like that, again, I'm grazing over this very quickly just so that you've heard it before we actually dive into it in a couple of days. But clap improvise is what licks are as well. So essentially when a drummer would do right? That could be a played lick. Is just rhythmic, like pulses. But when we make sure that on each of those pulses is one of the notes that we have in our grips in the chords, that's how you essentially improvise and build licks. So to summarize, and I will also share this graph because it kind of represents everything that I've touched upon, talked about in this class, which is that we kind of are dealing with two parts to music here. The left side of the equation here is the what, or in other words, the chords. This is where the notes that we want to play come from, right? And then the right side of the equation is the how, or the patterns, which is, as I just mentioned, essentially what do you do with those given notes that are in a chord to make it sound like you want it to sound. Okay? Quickly going over a question. This is a very good point, Paul. Thank you for adding that point. It's absolutely true. You can transpose it to a key to match your voice. And if there's more interest in going into that, I mean, I'm absolutely willing to explain more about that as well. This is also right, guys. We're in a group together for a reason. This is amazing. Already somebody jumping in. I would highly like it. I would very much like it if people could also do that inside of the group. So if you have a question, just don't be scared to post it there, because people can comment and answer your question. Maybe like helping each other is just so amazing. And as I always say, teaching is learning. Like if you have to explain something to somebody, you have to make sure that you really grasp it as well. And it will like deepen your understanding of the matter yourself as well. So I highly recommend doing that. Having said that, post in the group. I will be around, and I am absolutely willing to deviate a little bit from what is the actual planned program to answer more questions which you guys might have. Guys, right? I mean, so but rounding off this story, patterns on the right side is how this forms into a piano part. So what, or essentially which notes, and we'll see that the tones or the notes come from the key, the scale, and yeah, that's built from the notes. So this is kind of from the very bottom up. On the right hand, we have the accents, which form the beats, and then the measures. Combined with time and tempo, they make up the rhythm, which is then translated or translates into the feel and the groove. That is combined with techniques, how we get to patterns and how we actually play music. So, I apparently planned to do the demo over here. That's not what I'm going to do, because I already did the demo. My initial plan in my mind was to round off with this particular slide, but I kind of sorted them not correctly, apparently. Sorry about that, but hey. Guys, I think that kind of rounds off my story for today, unless there are questions. I mean, I'm here and willing to answer questions, and if they are not top of mind for you right here and now, then you are free to ask the questions in the group, because yeah, as I mentioned, we can help each other out. I can help you out. I can maybe show you some extra stuff and things like that. Later today, probably in the coming hour or so, I will post not just the replay, but also the assignment. But I've already actually said what the assignment is. I would like you to think about the song that you want to learn in these 5 days. And I would like you to go online and find in the way that I've explained. So going to Google and just Googling it for now is probably the best way to find the chord sheet. Okay, so find the chord sheet to your tune, and then make sure, but we're going to go more into that like when we handle chords. But having said that, there is a reason that I already went a couple of steps ahead in this sense. I would like you to prepare by finding all the chords that are in your tune. So bear with me here. We have major chords. Major chords, exactly right, Martin. Yeah, diminished is 3 and 3, and augmented is 4 and 4. What is really important to realize, though, is that you are starting on the note that you want to find the chord for, right? So if I want to find a C chord, I'm starting on the C, and from there I'm taking the steps. So try to find the chords to the major chords. Again, there is nothing written afterwards, but I have to have like a little asterisk or caveat to that remark, because we have something that is called extensions, and I will touch upon extensions lightly in a couple of days, obviously. Extensions are kind of color notes, and they are indicated with numbers. So if you see, for instance, a C9, right? So just a C with a 9 added, or a C with a 7 added. These are called extensions, and that does not mean that it's not still a major chord. The important thing to realize here is that a major chord does not have a small m after it. So C minor is a C, a capital C, with a non-capital M. That's C minor. C major is just C. I will like type it over here. So this would be C major, C minor. C dim is C diminished, and C aug is C augmented. If you see C9 sharp, if you see this, for instance, I'm just throwing a curveball there. If you see something like that, it's still C minor. It's still C major. That's it. Sorry. Yeah, because there's not that small m is not in there. And that is what you're looking for. You're looking for a small m, a dim, or an aug. So what do you do with all those numbers? You just disregard them for this moment. So if you see something crazy like that, C9 sharp 11, like there's tons of those variations, and I will explain those later. For now, it's important that you just read the C. Everything before the crazy extensions. Cool? So that is the assignment. Find a chord sheet of your tune, look at all the chords that are in the tune, and do the 4 plus 3, 3 plus 4, or in the like rare situation that you will find a dim or an aug chord in your tune, you do the 3 plus 3 for dim or 4 plus 4 for aug. Good question here. What about a slash chord? I will explain more about slash chords when we get to chords. For now, disregard it as well. Okay? So no slash. This is still, I just see a C over here. Everything after C is not relevant for this moment. So if it's called, or if it says, like you say, C over D over here, just read C. Just the first one, you're only looking for the minor M, the small m, the dim, or the aug, right? If none of those are present, then we're going to go for just a C major chord. Thank you so much, Gary. I hope that I say your name right, by the way. Or is it Jerry? Jerry? Well, anyway, I really appreciate it. I appreciate all you guys for giving me your attention, and I really hope this was more or less educational and beneficial. Tomorrow, we'll be back to dig deeper into the musical frameworks, musical structures framework, and I will teach you a couple of tricks which will be very convenient to remember music by heart, because essentially that's what we're aiming for, right? Play it by heart in the end. Jerry, cool. Yes, amazing, Daniel. You will definitely learn that. Thanks, Martin. Thank you, Rocky. I really appreciate it. Yeah, that's a good one. Like, so I'm sorry, I see your name as private person. So addressing you, some of the chords on, say, Ultimate Guitar aren't necessarily the right chords. What do we do then? Ultimate Guitar presents chords that are most of the time figured out by amateur musicians. And there's nothing wrong. Obviously, you have very proficient amateur musicians, so not to kind of diminish whatever that may mean, but sometimes they don't hear the correct chords. Barb, sorry Barb, I'll remember it now. If that is the case, so I will add this to the assignment. Thanks. I know, like in this way we get to a better challenge, which I love. Thank you for the input. You know what I will do? I will add to the assignment to post your chords to the group, right? So obviously I will ask you to post most of your assignments to the group anyway, but if you found a chord progression, post it to the group and I or we will check it for you. But just so you guys know, some chords won't be correct simply because the person who figured them out didn't hear it correctly. Now, I'm also going to give you a link to an app for those of you that have a smartphone, which is likely everybody of you nowadays. We have a very, very brilliant app who can, powered by AI, hear the chords to a tune. So it's essentially like Shazam for chords and voicing. So that's really cool. They have a free version. I will share a link in the group as well. So if all else fails, this definitely won't fail and you can use that. But just, I mean, the lyrics included with this is just so convenient that I would still first like everybody to go online and do the Google route first, right? If we really can't get to your chords, I will show you how convenient that app might be. Exactly, and that's what we're aiming for as well in the end, Adrian. Yes. Thanks. Okay, guys, if there are more questions, feel free to shoot. I'm still here. But if I don't see any questions pop up, I'm kind of going to round this off and thanking you all for your attention and hoping to see you back here tomorrow. No questions? Right. I will round it off then, guys. Again, thank you so much for your attention and see you back here tomorrow for day number 2. Bye-bye.